As Mum and Dad lay in comas at the Austin Hospital in their final days, and each day we were unsure whether they would recover or not, it was comforting to know that when we said, "See you later," we knew it was true.
The jury in the Mushroom Massacre trial is close to finishing its fourth day.
When things go wrong in those adult interpersonal relationships, she responds with intense feelings of hurt, of pain, of injustice and anger.
I collapsed at home, then was in an induced coma for 16 days. My family were asked to come and say goodbye to me twice, wrote 49-year-old Simon Patterson in May 2022. He survived that mysterious illness, barely. Little did he know that a year later, in the quiet town of Leongatha, Australia, a family lunch would turn into a nightmare. 3 of his loved ones would be dead within days, and the truth behind their final meal would horrify an entire nation. This is the Mushroom Killer case, a true story of trust betrayed and evil served on a plate. July 29, 2023, began like any other peaceful Saturday in Leongatha, Victoria. Erin Patterson, a 48-year-old mother of 2, invited her extended family over for lunch at her country home, a gesture of goodwill toward her estranged husband's relatives. The guests were her former in-laws Dawn and Gail Patterson, both 70, and Gail's sister Heather Wilkinson, 66, with her husband Ian Wilkinson, 68. By all appearances, life was good. Dawn and Gail were doting grandparents. Heather and Ian were beloved in their community. Ian was a Baptist pastor, and Erin was eager to maintain close-knit family ties despite her separation from Simon. In the cozy dining room, Erin laid out an elegant meal of beef Wellington pastries, complete with mashed potatoes and green beans on the side. Erin's 2 children were off at the movies that afternoon. It was just the 5 adults enjoying what felt like a heartfelt family reunion. No one sensed any danger. As they clinked glasses and savored the rich meal, it seemed like a perfect, ordinary family lunch. But what happened next would shock everyone. Within 24 hours, that ordinary lunch turned into a fight for life. In the early morning hours of July 30th, Heather Wilkinson woke up with her heart racing and an agonizing pain twisting her stomach. Soon Dawn, Gail, and Ian were all struck by the same violent pain along with nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Their conditions deteriorated rapidly. Something was terribly wrong. Panicked and bewildered, family members called for help. Ambulances sped through the quiet streets of Leongatha, rushing all 4 lunch guests to the hospital as they vomited and writhed in pain. Erin, the hostess who had cooked the meal, also arrived at the Leongatha hospital, claiming she felt ill with stomach pain and diarrhea. She appeared distraught and bewildered, like a woman living her worst nightmare. According to her, she too had eaten the lunch and now feared the worst. Tears rolled down her face as she insisted she loved her family and would never harm them. To doctors and onlookers, Erin seemed as heartbroken and alarmed as any innocent person would be. Yet there was something strange about Erin's condition. Despite doctors urging her to stay in hospital for treatment, she insisted on going home. This odd refusal sent a tiny chill of suspicion through the medical staff.
It was when I saw the text exchange that I became convinced that she had murdered them. Because if she'd been a decent person, she would have responded with utmost urgency to the health department who were trying to save other innocent people's lives. Instead, she fobbed them off with the most absurd excuses. As far as I'm concerned, at that time, she just looked like a psychopath.
By the next day, as all 4 of her relatives lay gravely ill, 3 of them now in liver failure, the hospital staff alerted the police. No one could have imagined the truth behind her tears. To understand how this tragedy unfolded, we must step back and look at the family's past. Erin Patterson married Simon Patterson in 2007. They had 2 children and for a time lived a happy life. Erin was educated, once training as an air traffic controller and later running a bookshop. She grew close with her in-laws Dawn and Gail, bonding over a shared love of knowledge and family. Gail's sister Heather and her husband Ian were frequent faces at family gatherings, a big, loving family. But even happy families have cracks. Erin and Simon's marriage began to deteriorate after their children were born, leading to several separations.
Does she need some forensic mental job to untangle what's going on there. What were the occasions that set her off? Well, probably the divorce or the separation. They may be the things that she couldn't get through.
By 2020, the couple had split for good, sharing custody of the kids. The breakup brought tension. Financial disputes flared, arguments ensued, and resentment simmered beneath the surface. However, to the outside world, the Pattersons remained amicable despite the divorce. Then came a mysterious incident that, in hindsight, seems like a grim prelude. In May 2022, about a year before the fatal lunch, Simon Patterson, Erin's estranged husband, nearly died from a sudden gut illness. He collapsed without warning and spent 16 days in a coma. Doctors were baffled by what toxin or condition had nearly killed an otherwise healthy man. Simon ultimately survived, never imagining this could be connected to anything sinister. By mid-2023, Erin was living on her own with the children in a new home and had invited her former in-laws to lunch to reconnect. Simon was also invited, but at the last minute he declined to attend, a decision that, unbeknownst to him, likely saved his life. The stage was set for a gathering that was supposed to heal wounds. Instead, it would tear the family apart forever. In the aftermath of the lunch, as police and doctors pieced together clues, troubling details emerged. Lab tests soon confirmed what the victims had ingested.
Little chunks of what appeared to be mushrooms.
They were poisoned by death cap mushrooms, a toxin that causes fatal liver damage. The delicious beef Wellingtons Erin served had been laced with one of the deadliest poisons in nature. Suddenly, the horrific puzzle began to take shape. This was no ordinary food poisoning. It looked like an intentional act. Death cap mushrooms appeared deceptively ordinary, yet they contain toxins that destroy the liver and kidneys. Cooking doesn't neutralize their poison, and just one mushroom can kill an adult. These pale greenish-yellow fungi were the murder weapon hidden in Erin's home-cooked meal. Investigators found that all 4 victims' symptoms matched death cap poisoning exactly. A brief respite after initial sickness, then sudden liver failure. There was no doubt now. The family had been deliberately poisoned. Suspicion naturally turned toward the one person who prepared and served the food, Erin. At first, she protested her innocence, stating, "I had absolutely no reason to hurt these people whom I loved." Indeed, on the surface, Erin had little to gain by murdering her in-laws. She was financially comfortable, had a beautiful new home and sole custody of her kids. Could this really have been a terrible accident as she claimed? Investigators weren't convinced. Several inconsistencies in Erin's story kept cropping up. Why was Erin barely sick? All her guests were deathly ill, yet Erin only had an upset stomach and refused hospital admission. Why were her children unharmed? Erin said her kids ate leftovers of the beef Wellington the next day, but conveniently she claimed she had scraped the mushrooms off since the kids didn't like mushrooms. Neither child fell ill. What about the food dehydrator? Investigators discovered that Erin owned a food dehydrator, a device useful for drying mushrooms, which she threw away in a garbage tip shortly after the poisoning. In fact, police found the dehydrator dumped at the local transfer station, and forensic tests later detected Erin's fingerprints and remnants of Amanita phalloides toxin on it. Erin initially lied to police, claiming she had gotten rid of that dehydrator long before. Caught in the lie, she admitted to dumping it out of panic. Once people accused her of poisoning the meal. Different plates. The sole survivor, Ian Wilkinson, revealed a haunting detail once he was well enough to speak. Erin had served herself from a plate of a different color than the others. It was subtle, but he remembered it. She took the last plate, a unique one, after letting everyone else choose theirs. This raised the suspicion that Erin's serving might have been prepared separately, without the poisonous mushrooms. It was as if she took care to protect herself while her guests unknowingly dined on death. Behind the wholesome facade of a family gathering, a dark plan had allegedly been in motion. Investigators digging into Erin Patterson's history uncovered several secrets and motivations that painted a chilling picture. Strained relationships provided a possible motive. While Erin had once been close to Dawn and Gail, there were hints of resentment. The prosecution would later suggest that Erin had 2 faces, a dutiful ex-daughter-in-law outwardly, but privately she was angry at her former husband and his family. She felt Simon's parents sided against her. Love had curdled into bitterness. If Simon's near-death experience in 2022 was any indication, Erin might have already been testing deadly methods. A family friend later confided that Simon often felt sick after spending time with Erin. It seems the mushroom plot was the culmination of her efforts to eliminate those she saw as obstacles. Prosecutors revealed that Erin had scouted forests months before the lunch, allegedly gathering and drying death cap mushrooms, one of the most lethal fungi on Earth. Instead of making a single large dish, she prepared individual beef Wellingtons, a detail they claimed wasn't random. It allowed her to poison only the portions meant for her guests.
I believe that she'd still be sitting in jail in a year's time, believing she was entitled to do this, because these people made her feel crap.
To lure them in, Erin reportedly told the family she had serious health news to share. Being loving relatives, they came without hesitation. During the lunch, she was cheerful, composed, playing the perfect host while secretly watching her plan unfold. When her guests began falling violently ill, Erin sprang into action, not to save them but to cover her tracks. She dumped the food dehydrator, handed leftovers to police while claiming cooperation, and kept insisting it was all a terrible accident. "I loved them," she said in a nervous statement. But the cracks in her story were already showing, and soon, everything would unravel. Victoria Police launched a full homicide investigation by early August 2023, as soon as the first victims died. Detectives carefully gathered the threads of evidence that would tie Erin to the crime. One major breakthrough was the CCTV footage from a local transfer station, showing Erin dumping an object, later identified as her food dehydrator, shortly after the poisonous lunch. That dehydrator, once recovered, became a goldmine of proof. Forensic analysis found it smeared with residue of death cap toxins matching the poison in the victims.
When we look at the mushroom, the most toxin is stored in the cap. The main toxicity here inhibits in the liver the reproduction of liver cells. So you actually die of liver failure.
So this is the iNaturalist website. On here, mushroom enthusiasts and citizen scientists can post sightings of mushrooms that they've come across.
Erin's fingerprint on the device sealed the connection. Investigators also combed through Erin's digital footprint and phone records. They discovered that in the months leading up to the murders, Erin had made internet searches and Facebook posts about wild mushrooms and dehydrating techniques. GPS data and witness accounts placed her in areas known for death cap mushroom growth in the spring of 2023. Piece by piece, the police built a timeline of how Erin planned the crime, from obtaining the deadly fungi, to cooking the meal, to the aftermath where she tried to mask her guilt. On November 2, 2023, police felt they had enough to close the net. They arrested Erin Patterson and charged her with 3 counts of murder for Dawn, Gail, and Heather, and 5 counts of attempted murder. The additional attempted murder charges included the poisoning of Ian and 4 separate alleged attempts on Simon's life. The quiet rural town watched in shock as Erin, once just a familiar neighbor, was led away in handcuffs to face justice.
Just draws you in because I want to hear every word that's coming out of her mouth and hanging on every single word that she's saying to just make my own mind up on what I think is going on.
I found her to be quite well spoken and quite polite. I watch her when she deals with the staff when they let her out of the dock, and she always says thank you, and I find her to be quite respectful in that way, which is a surprise actually.
We've already got our verdicts. Sorry,
but it'll be up to the jury, I suppose. So.
That's right.
As the case gained media attention worldwide, speculation swirled. Erin's every action was scrutinized. She stuck to her story of innocence, even as detectives revealed damning facts. She hadn't once called to check on the victim's condition after they were hospitalized. She had sent Simon angry, extremely aggressive texts in the months before the murders, showing her boiling rage. And in a chilling detail at trial, it was noted that Erin faked having stomach trouble after the meal, an act to pretend she was a victim too. Investigators marveled at the cunning and cold-blooded nature of the crime. It was a deadly performance and Erin had nearly gotten away with it. But in the end, meticulous police work and perhaps Erin's own mistakes brought the truth to light. The trial of Erin Patterson began in April 2025 in the Supreme Court of Victoria, and it captivated Australia for 9 weeks. In the courtroom, the facade of the pleasant homemaker fell away to reveal two starkly different stories. Prosecutors painted her as a calculating killer, hinting at bitterness beneath her polite smile. The defense claimed it was all a tragic mistake, that Erin loved her family and would never harm them. The only survivor, Pastor Ian Wilkinson, testified through tears. He recalled Erin being completely normal that day, smiling, calm, and how mere hours later he was fighting for his life. He also remembered a crucial detail. Erin's plate was a different color from everyone else's. Erin wept in court, repeating that she never meant to hurt anyone. But under pressure, her lies unraveled. Prosecutors presented photos of her foraging, CCTV of her dumping the dehydrator, and lab results showing her meal was the only one free of toxins. One by one, the pieces fell into place, and the jury began to see the truth behind the tears.
Finding these toxins both in the leftovers and more so in the biological samples of the individuals, both the individuals that died and Ian, of course, who managed to survive.
Finally, on July 7, 2025, the verdict was delivered. The courtroom fell silent as the foreperson announced, guilty on all counts. Erin Patterson was convicted of murdering Dawn, Gail, and Heather.
There's been a much-awaited verdict in the trial of Erin Patterson, who has been found guilty.
And of attempting to murder Ian. As the verdict was read, Erin sat flanked by prison officers. She showed no visible emotion, only blinking rapidly, her face pale. In the gallery, a muffled sob came from the victim's family members, a mix of relief and sorrow. There were no winners in that courtroom, only the cold reality of lives lost and trust betrayed. While formal sentencing was set for a later date, it was clear Erin Patterson would face life in prison for her crimes. In Australia, each murder conviction carries a potential life sentence, and 3 lives taken guaranteed she would never walk free again. As for the Patterson children, they effectively lost both parents in this tragedy. One can only imagine the emotional turmoil they face. Their grandparents and great-aunt are gone forever, and their mother now condemned as a murderer. It is a heartbreaking aftermath that no sentencing can ever truly rectify. A simple act of hospitality, a family meal, became an instrument of death. Love, trust, and kinship were twisted into tools of revenge.
When somebody's life is taken prematurely through murder or manslaughter, people never really recover from that. They talk about closure, there's never really full closure.
Erin Patterson's story is a haunting reminder that evil can wear a familiar face. She sat across the table smiling at the very people she was about to destroy. Jealousy, bitterness, and deception festered in the shadows until they turned lethal. The lone survivor, Pastor Ian Wilkinson, has shown extraordinary grace in the face of horror. With tears in his eyes, he urged his congregation to keep on going and have faith despite the tragedy, saying, "The way is sometimes hard, but God is good." His strength and forgiveness shine a small light in an otherwise dark tale. But Ian will forever bear the pain of losing his beloved wife Heather and dear friends Gail and Dawn in such a treacherous way.
As Mum and Dad lay in comas at the Austin Hospital in their final days, and each day we were unsure whether they would recover or not, it was comforting to know that when we said, "See you later," we knew it was true. The only thing that we didn't know was when. The hope of "see you later," that was their hope, and it's ours. And in the meantime, we'll miss them.
May we all take to heart the sobering lesson that even the kindest smile can hide the deadliest intent. Stay safe, stay curious, and as always, be careful who you trust, for the most unsuspecting moment could change everything. If you found this story gripping, let us know your thoughts. Stay tuned for more real-life crime stories, and remember to cherish the goodness in life, because sometimes reality is more shocking than fiction.